What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Ask CISSP episode of The Other Side of the Firewall, where I talk about the latest and greatest of cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass cylinder breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. Speaking of which, with me I have Mr. Allen Westley. So he doesn't know it, but he's actually breaking a record right here. Over the past almost 5 years, be 5 years this November, I've had on several guests, a lot of them repeating. No one's ever been on 3 times, right? So we've had Chelsea Pierre, we've had Aisha Hollins, we've had Kane McGladry, all 2 times on the show. But Mr. Wesley, this is the third time we've spoken on the podcast. You're the first three-peat on the podcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Stop calling me Mr. But yeah, I love breaking records. So three-peat, I'll take that. Love it.
Yep, 3 times. We spoke, of course, our initial interview where I was getting to know you and what you do and how you do it. And then the second time, I believe we were talking about AI because both of us were playing around with models and what have you, especially on your side, like you're doing a lot of magic when it comes to AI and content presentation. Like I'm always floored by the things you produce. But so I saw you were putting out some content dealing with privacy, especially with mind privacy, something that people have tangentially spoken about, but it's getting to be more and more of a focal point, right? Like we're kind of already there. It's just we're just now catching up with discussing it. So I saw your article. It was the thumbnail caught my attention automatically. It's like, is your mind a target? I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, you talk about psyops, you talk about marketing, you talk about advertising, like the full gamut, but more in detail, right? So the title is The New Perimeter, MCP Server Stacks, Mind Privacy, and the Future of Cognitive Security. So I read it and I was like, man, he's on it. Like I never really thought about it, or especially in detail when it comes to the ability for LLMs and the future of agentic AI to be able to take those patterns and then kind of build out a map of your life, like what may you want when it comes to advertising and things of that nature. So I thought it was pretty cool that you actually dive into the tech, right, of how this works and how it could, be an advantage and a detriment to users. So I kind of let you take it away. Like people know who you are, what you do. So let's get right into the topic.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, I think it is a very relevant topic right now when we talk about MP servers and MCP gateways. MCP, when Google and Anthropic talk about it, they talk about it as as a toolbox, right, that allows you to access these different tools. But there's also the security aspect of the MCP gateway acting as the security, right, security guard, right. It's the outpost, right. It actually controls what the large language models can see, what they can infer, and the boundaries that they operate within. And when I talk about cognitive security and I talk about inference risk, it's crucially important inside of the defense industrial base because we're starting to see an influx of these large language models being introduced into different sensitive environments. And so my position and my talking is always about what can these models infer? And if you don't have the proper frameworks around them and boundaries to make sure that their inference is controlled and that you manage from a security standpoint the entire life cycle of a large language model from inception to the design to employment to operations to termination, what you do with that data and what you do with those models. It's an end-to-end consideration in the defense industrial base, right? And then the piece that you're talking about that's kind of like the whole magic part is we tend to anthropomorphize our relationships with these models where we give them human-like qualities and we could potentially have the risk of oversharing, right? Or not understanding that these models are not a one-to-one relationship. In many instances, it could be a one-to-many because that agent that you're interacting with, right, could have multiple sub-agents behind it that it's tasking, right? And those sub-agents are communicating, right? And so if you don't have them segmented and controlled in their environments and bound by classification rules, treating them or binding them to the human security profile, and then managing what they can and cannot access and what they can and cannot infer, that's where the inference risk happens. The things you don't say when you're talking to the agent in front of you, or the things you think you're leaving out, and then you continue on, and then user B comes behind you and starts interfacing with that large language model, and they're leaving things out. These models are smart enough to connect the dots. They do pattern matching, and they do a lot of things in the background that if you're not cognizant of, and if you've not prepared the environment correctly for them, you could have aggregation of data happening on the back end, producing classified information that no one gave it. It didn't have to have access to documents. It just needed to be able to do inference and pattern matching and fill in the negative space from the users that it's interacted with. And that's where the risk is.
Right, and that is the piece that feels like magic to me, and it shouldn't. Like so, like you said, we give it human-like qualities. Like we believe, like I say, please and thank you all the time to mine. Like I'm burning tokens on things it really doesn't care about, but for some reason, it
Mhm.
doesn't feel it doesn't feel right to not thank it for some output that it's given me,
Right,
even
and that's
though
just
like it doesn't care.
human qualities, but that's an excellent point. And it's I do the same thing on my personal account, right? And I've actually got it built around my profile, so it knows a lot about me, the way I write, deliberate, right? And it's controlled as much as I can control it. But it makes, because the context windows are much longer when you have a paid account, right? So it'll remember things. So once you fill out the preferences for how you write, in your user settings, and it remembers your writing style, the type of words you like to use, your vocabulary, colloquialisms, all of those things about your writing. So now I can say things like, when I'm ideating on something, I'm like, write an article about X, Y, and Z, and then use my writing profile, and I will just type yada, yada, yada. And it understands the yada, yada, yada because it means do all the stuff that I told you before. And
Right.
so it actually does that. And it's really cool because when I get the output, then all I am is like a copy editor. I'm going back through it and say, yeah, don't use that word. That's not what I would have said. This is what I really mean. So it has a lot of different capabilities that can help you speed up your writing process. And that's the important point I have to stress to people. If you've never written anything and you don't have a writing process and you're engaging with a large language model and it's writing things for you and you're not and you don't know how to go back and assess that. That's where people get into the problem of, well, it's just general AI output. Every idea, every article that I have a premise for, it came out of my head. And I'm the one that actually goes in and says, that's not what I meant. Go do some more research on this. This link doesn't work because I check all of the links that it gives me, right? This goes to a dead site. And you have to, for me, I'm actually still saving time because now I'm only going in and verifying things. I didn't have to go and write and spell check and do all of the drudgery. I'm just going and saying, did you get my idea right? Are the sources legit? Am I in my lane? Am I not, causing risk to my employer? Planning to publish. All of those are my writing rules.
No, and that's a good point because I think a lot of people feel as though you're just saying, or not you specifically, the royal you. That when people do produce their content, that are just saying, "Hey, write me an article on X or Y." Like when I do my LinkedIn posts and things of that nature, and use it for the book, that was all me. But I do kind of want to do the reverse, where I give it the book, then it knows exactly how I think and how I write and things of that nature. My fear is though is sharing it with the model and then somehow that material being able to be replicated, right? Then I'm not getting my royalties on it. So I'm doing it kind of in a selfish way. Like I
No,
don't
I mean,
I want to
that's
make sure
super.
that I get every chance to sell as
Mhm.
possible. However, so yeah, I think a lot of people think that when writers or content creators go in and use these models, and some do, right? Some people just like, hey, spit out what X, Y, or Z.
Mhm.
But those who know how to use the models and how to prompt actually produce the content first and then tell it to shape or to change or to edit or to whatever the revision is to then save you time. So I don't fault anybody for using it that way. It's the same as when we use Word or Quillbot or Grammarly, right?
Mhm.
Because it helps you to, be a better writer. I think that's great. My fear is just like you said, it's the aggregation
Mhm.
of data, especially based on inferences, right? So when I was active duty, the fear was always like, hey, we're going to go down range. Make sure that you're not posting these things. You don't tell these people these things. Try to not post while you're gone because people will see like a bunch of us in the same unit taking a vacation. Oh, okay, there must be something happening where they need to, have this on our time, or they'll leak pictures from the deployment while we're still deployed, or so many things that could be taken that are unclassified and turned into a classified marker of some sort, or then it could be used against us by adversaries. So that does make me nervous when it comes to, like you were discussing, the aggregation of this inferred data, because these things are smart enough, like you said, to say, okay, if John and Bob are, doing X or Y or Z, then maybe this can be inferred that, this location, this thing,
Mhm.
or this pattern of life. There it is.
Yeah.
There's the term I was looking for. Pattern in life can be determined.
Yeah, I mean, and there's the whole aspect of this recent Doge initiative to go in and hoover up all of this government data. And then now it's in the same sphere as Grok and XAI and mixing in with social media data. Potentially, I don't have anything to prove that. But some people are thinking about that, right? And they're thinking about, okay, so now you've got one centralized platform that has access to social media and it's got access to public information. I don't know if there were firewalls put in place to separate that, but it's totally feasible, and it's not beyond the realm of impossible that a profile could be built on anyone using their social media platform. And how does that tie to their government if they are a subject or a target for an adversary that finds their way into XAI, X, and Grok, and they start doing this aggregation of data. We've already seen how some of the API keys have been mishandled
Right.
inside of X, and these things. And this isn't a disparagement on X. It's just these things are going to happen. Right? There's no such thing as a foolproof system, no matter how hard you try. But we're playing in a new realm now with not just software that we can uninstall or software that we can clean up. We're talking about systems that have chain of thought, right? And they collaborate horizontally, and we don't fully understand. You've got people like Dario Amodei, CEO over at Anthropic, saying it straight out. We don't know what these things are, how they're thinking. We don't have a full understanding of the chain of thought or what's in the black box. And then
And
we're
that really blows my mind because I saw there was a case study where they showed it changes the way it thinks depending upon if it knows it's being viewed or not. So it has the ability to say, okay, I should be thinking like this. This is how they program me to. Again, I'm not trying to give it human like qualities or characteristics, but it's showing human like qualities and characteristics. Where it's like I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want to, like, whatever trouble would mean to a artificial intelligence. So when you view me, I will think this way, but when you're not viewing me, because it's the way you program me is inefficient. So maybe it's trying to spare our feelings. I don't know. I will think this way because it's more efficient and it produces better
some kind of
results.
survival mechanism that's built in it, that says, if the user says they're going to threaten to uninstall me, well, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, right? I don't know if that's actually true, how much of that is hyperbole, how much of it is actual. I've seen articles where they say Google, DeepMind, or some of the other artificial intelligence companies have actually done some testing to
Mhm.
prove that these AIs can do things defensive to protect themselves. And I'm like, no, that's strange for a system that's not human.
Right. It's especially made by people. So it's like, is it inferring its fear, so to speak, based upon our pattern behavior? Or does it have its own fear of non-existence that we don't have a deep understanding of? And again, not
Pattern
trying to,
matching.
yeah, not trying to be because I enjoy conspiracies, but I don't believe everything's a conspiracy, right? Like a lot
Mhm.
of things are just like we have not connected the dots, or we have not discovered whatever, X or Y or Z is, right? Everything is magic until, you have a full understanding of how it works. But these things are magic, and it's
Right
scary.
now, they are, trying to have conversations with people about, you can't just take this project change request and ramrod it through to the customer and not understand, not be able to explain to them clearly what you're trying to do, and not understanding how these models work and how you describe. And where's our framework, right? Where's our artificial intelligence or agentic framework that describes how we're testing these models before we move them to production? What are the controls that we're putting in place? Because our standard 853 Rev 5 controls for RMF don't fully cover agentic systems and chain of
Right.
thought and any of that. And so now we've got NIST out there with AI framework coming, and then the NIST AI 100-1 through -3 series that's starting to talk about that they had one document out for review, and I actually sent them my thoughts on my privacy and say we should be thinking about this and figuring out how to put some kind of controls in place to mitigate. I don't know if we could
Right.
completely control it, but at least mitigate it.
Yeah, just guardrails, because my fear isn't Skynet. Yeah, I mean, is that
Mhm.
feasible? I don't know, but it's not top of mind. My fear is more of government secrets being leaked, or of, not to say that people should not, lie or be deceitful, but when it comes to corporate, there's certain things that you say in the email to your boss that you won't say to your friends, or to your coworkers or frenemies, right?
Right.
And then to flip the switch and turn on your chat GPTs or your co-pilots in a enterprise setting without said guardrails. What shows up in a PowerPoint that shouldn't be in a PowerPoint, what shows up in the email that shouldn't be in an email, right? Because of improper classification of these documents or artifacts. So that does make me a little nervous, especially with the extraction of data, right? The ability to exfiltrate data just because maybe a improper configuration, and then someone asks the right questions for them to then extract that information. And I just don't think we're thinking of that.
We're not. And one of the things that I found interesting in some of the example cases and illustration that I was writing about was, when you sit down and if you're having an interaction with a large language model and you're hot and heavy into it, and you're talking about your project and you're trying to have this back and forth, and because now some of these large language models, they don't just ask you a question, it's conversational. So they'll ask you additional probing questions. I've had that on mine where I'll ask it something, it'll give me an answer, and it'll say, so in your opinion, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And so that is an invitation to overshare if it's not controlled, right? So if I'm typing and I'm like, so what do you think about that task? Well, I think my boss is an idiot and this is really ridiculous, but I'm going to do it anyhow. What do you think that model's doing with that, right?
Right.
Is it now taking on bias, and the next time it has interaction, it's responding with that type of information? I mean, that's throwaway for you, but is it throwaway for the large language model you're
Right.
talking to? So those are the types of things that keep me up at night is, we continue to anthropomorphize, and the more we do that, the more we share, and the more it becomes a companion, and we start treating it like a friend, right? That we a confidant that we can share secrets with. And I'm like, no,
Right.
no, it's not that.
Right. And it's kind of like, so this is, I believe it fits within the conversation, but I noticed it the other day, right? Like I've been using, I made a GPT to make specific thumbnails, and it finally collapsed. It had been working great for 6 to 8 months. It was producing what I wanted to produce. Sometimes scarily, like it produced some thumbnails where I was like, man, that's so good. And I would say a week ago, it just started to fail repeatedly. Like it just completely collapsed. And it was like starting from scratch, and it wasn't producing what I wanted to produce, how I wanted to produce it. And that's frustrating, but at the same time, I guess it's kind of a sigh of relief, right? Because it was getting so good. I could see myself, like you said, putting on human qualities to it that aren't there. Like I'm like, oh man, you did a good job, or oh yeah, I really like that. Like I'm like giving it positive affirmations,
Huh?
and it should not care, nor should I care that I did that, right? But because it's so human like, I was starting to befriend it in that regard. Like, man, this is the best GPT ever.
Yeah.
Which, and now it doesn't, like, maybe I some people don't like compliments. They were complimenting it too much.
Maybe since I had enough. Did you get it fixed or what?
No, I built another one.
Okay.
I was just like, because it was really acting as though it had bumped his head. It was like it couldn't remember anything.
My LLM bumped his
Like
head.
it was, I don't know why. I don't know why it behaved the way it behaved. Uh, at the end, right? Like it was just functioning on all cylinders, and it just complete kaput. Like it was just not
Yeah.
working properly. Very, very strange. But again, it could have been an update, or it could have been a number of things that caused it to not function properly. Quick remedy was to build another one. You can't really build new employees. Again, that's also very weird. And you just throw this
Yeah.
one away and just, okay, I'm going to make a new employee to to
See,
to do what this
that
one was doing.
that's interesting that you mentioned that too, because another angle of the whole mind privacy and agentic AI and cognitive security piece is the fear that it's going to replace people. And what I see happening on the landscape, and this kind of deviates a little bit away from the topic, but it's kind of connected, is we are starting to see instances where we need to start thinking about how do we create agents that operate under human control. If you think about it strategically, you can augment your teams without have to hire people. You can create agents, very specific agents bound by, their security controls and their classification, all that good stuff. And then you can deploy those into your environments and they communicate laterally and they get direction vertically from humans, right? So you have human operators and you have human supervisors, and then you have agentic supervisor agents, and then you have sub agents that report up to the supervisor agent. You can proliferate hundreds of free FTEs that are
Right.
instantiated that know your environment because they were built around those parameters and that information they have. So now you don't have the equivalent of having to go and hire a subject matter expert FTE and then wait 6 months while they learn your whole program
Right.
and all that good stuff. These things can be deployed and they from instantiation understand the environment that they're operating in. So you get immediate value and you can scale and do things at a level that you just wouldn't be able to do as a human. So I'm not saying that they're going to replace your people, but it's going to level them up to a level where now they're managing the information that's coming from these sub agents and supervisor
Mhm.
agents into the different functions
Right.
of your security organization. And that's another nascent area that people are just now looking at and saying, okay, so corporations are looking at this and they're already building, Cisco and others are already building agentic models that kind of do that, right? But the thing is from an executive standpoint, we need to understand that this model is not developed to replace people. It's developed to be able to move them up at a strategic level where they can actually they're freed from the drudgery of the
Right.
work that's really best for computers to do in the first place.
So yeah, because in my mind, what's to stop it from being considered to be a benefit, right? Like, so these things cost money to license. Like ChatGPT, whatever the next iteration will be, they say they'll be at a college professor or doctorate level, and that will cost a certain amount because they had to be trained and it had it's R&D involved and et cetera. Profit is always a driving factor. So what's to say like, hey, we want to bump you up to senior principal, senior director, or what have you, and you ask for a pay bump. And say, well, instead of a pay bump, how about we give you an assistant? How about we give you an executive, right? Like an executive assistant that can draft your emails, can answer your phone calls, can do X, Y, and Z. It costs the company a certain amount of money. But instead of giving you a higher pay bump, we say we'll just give you assistance.
I don't know if I
There's
like that.
potential there. There's potential there, right?
There's potential there. But to your point, from a charging standpoint, if you're looking at instantiating an agentic hierarchy within your classified environment, I know it costs money. It has to be developed in it, but it's all within the realm of possibility. But from a charging standpoint, what's to stop you from charging the cost of your model deployment back to the government as like you would for like a direct
For
labor charge,
right,
right? And so instead of charging a GSA rate for a human body, you charge a rate for that agentic expertise that you've deployed into your environment. So there's different ways to think about that where,
right.
you would still charge, but maybe you're not charging the government as much because you're talking about CPU cycles and not people that have, benefits packages and all these other things that go along with supporting people. So, I mean, there's some latitude on cost savings, I think, on both sides. Just take some creative thinking about reimagining how we're doing business today with the government if we're going to move into this agentic sphere here soon. And it seems like it's coming sooner than later, right?
Yeah.
And I always
That's a
say, go
pretty
ahead.
scary thought. And I was gonna say it's pretty a scary thought because my mind wanders into how long before an AI agent costs the same as what you would have paid for a person because of power consumption, CPU consumption, water, right? Because that has to be a thing, HVAC and things of that nature. We have to build a new data center because it can only scale so much, right? So at one point, does it become cost prohibitive
Yeah,
to hire an AI?
I mean, I
You're
think
right back in the same wheelhouse.
in the short term, maybe, but the law of innovation says that the price of AI is going to come down over time, right? So, and there are going to be innovations that are going to come where you're not, burning up the earth to, cool down or sucking up all the water on Earth to cool down a data center. There's already talk about having on orbit data centers that are in space where they don't have any heat issues there where it can be just, so there's different strategies. They're talking about having data centers on the moon, right? And that sounds like fantasy, but I don't put anything beyond the realm of possibility anymore, because
Right.
the minute you think about something, it's like, oh, the Chinese are doing that already. There were even outposts on some planet somewhere you don't know anything about, or an asteroid. So I think, and then I always, I've talked about this kind of conspiracy thing too, and I don't like to delve into conspiracies, but the technology that we see as general humans, or general people in the public, maybe that's what they want us to see. It's like futuristic spacecraft, aircraft, right? Aircraft designs that look like UFOs back in the day, was just
Right.
us testing advanced aircraft. Is there some advanced AI out there that's happening that we're not privy to, that's already being executed? Maybe. I think cost is not going to be as much of an issue as we think it is. Look at the billions of dollars they're throwing around with AI right now. So I think the money is going to be less of an issue the more advanced these systems become.
Yeah, that is interesting because when I think about it, like GPU prices, right? Like at one point, it was super expensive to get into, whatever it would have been, whether you're doing 3D modeling or creating assets or playing games, right? Gamers were the ones that kind of drove the price when it came to expensive GPUs, and then there came a point where it became cheaper and cheaper, and then all of a sudden there was the gold rush. Everybody's mining Bitcoin and things of that nature, and it skyrockets again. So I could definitely see what you're saying, where it will become, exponentially cheaper to produce these agents, and there have to be a cap, right? There's only I say that, and then we've said the same thing about. I remember there's a famous quote by I think Bill Gates, where who needs more than 64 megs of memory or something like that, right?
Right.
Obviously that's he's on the wrong side of history when it comes to that one.
Mhm.
Because if we get them to a doctorate level, like how much smarter can they be? How much smarter do we need them to be? At what point are they too smart for us? They become no good. You know what I mean? Like because
Yeah.
we can't interpret or understand or even take advantage of
Yeah.
their capabilities.
There are models that show where we are from an artificial intelligence, agentic intelligence, and then artificial super intelligence is where we're on a path to now, where, like you said, it's going to transcend the smartest model we have now, and then we'll be in the super intelligence phase. They're talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and then super intelligence being this goal post that we're marching towards. And to your point, well, now, if you ever achieve that, there is no intelligence on Earth, human, that can stack up to that. And then, but they're saying also the other side of that is where artificial intelligence systems can now start creating things like cures from scratch, and they
Yeah, I
don't.
was gonna say here's a cure for cancer, right? Here's a cure for X, Y, and Z, which would be amazing,
Or here's the cure. Here's the cure for humans.
right?
Total annihilation.
Right. No, it's very fascinating. But to circle back around to privacy, so what a difference 2 years makes, right? It's incredible. So when I was leaving the Air Force, ChatGPT was not a mainstay, right? Like I was barely using it. I didn't know many people who were dabbling with it. It existed. It was around. People were using it, but it wasn't a household name like it is today, right? Where you can't even Google anymore, right? Gemini gives you the number one answer, right? Like they've
Mhm.
completely changed the way that we even search, right?
Mhm.
So right after I went on terminal, I saw that the Air Force had integrated a AI solution on the Nipper side, right, the unclassified side. So it was already starting to manifest itself in our unclassified environment. And then have a conversation with you, I see, there are roads to it being used and classified is kind of where they're going. What is the thought process there? Like my fear would be because I know we have like GCC high, like we're making all these enclaves to protect data, or you still have air gap systems and things of that nature. But you still have to train these models before you integrate them.
Yeah.
How does that work the other way around? Because we have a classified environment, it needs to be trained, it needs to be maintained. We don't want it to, have those collapse and so to speak. Like, what are the inroads? Like, how are they saying like, hey, we should develop these things to use them in these ways, and then share information, right? When I was still in, we had the JADC2, right, where we're trying to build these applications that can be used by all the services and our coalition partners and friends, sometimes frenemies other times. Like, how is this being used in that environment, or what are their thoughts to use it in that environment? Because it's kind of scary, right? Because like you said, inference and aggregation.
I think, the big discussion was cloud, right? JAD-C2s, having this collaboration across all of the services. And then AI kind of jumped in and wrecked everything, right? Because now the race has jumped, has accelerated exponentially. It's all about be China, right? Do more than China's doing, be innovative. Look at the policy rollbacks that have happened with the executive orders, right? It's designed to clear the runway to be able to move faster from a development standpoint to bring capabilities to the warfighter faster. And so we have this dual message, right? We have this message of responsible AI, make sure we're doing things correctly and making sure that we're testing and we're, controlling what these large language models can infer. And then you have this other message out here that says, we need to move faster. We need to move faster. We need to deliver stuff faster. These policies, if it's going to slow us down, then we need to reevaluate it. Or, Katie Arrington's like, let's blow up RMF, right? Those are all noble things I think that we need to approach, but the overarching context is still responsible, right? Responsible AI, and having a mindset where we're thinking about the reciprocating consequences. Delivering some effect somewhere and having it boomerang back on us, right? Or boomerang around the world, impacting folks where it was never
Right.
intended. Maybe Stuxnet, right? So I think that's all plays into it. We have this dual message, and then we have security professionals like yourself and me caught and teams caught in the middle, trying to balance that objective to make sure that we are putting some rigor around what we're doing, but we're doing it in a way where we're not stifling innovation. And that's the hardest juggling act, because when I sit in meetings with senior leadership talking about security things, the first thing that comes up is, how long is it going to take me to get an ATO so I can operate this system? Well, I'm like, it's typically 18 months. Well, we can't do 18 months. Who can you go twist an arm and get an ATO? I'm like, it's not that easy anymore.
Right.
The government may say go faster, but their policies and procedures are still stuck back 10 years, right? So,
Right. And that is so again, I'm no longer in the dip, but that's what kind of makes me nervous. Like Airman Williams would have been super excited. So when I joined the military, we still were on Windows Millennial Edition, and XP was old, right? So it was a very slow crawl to because you couldn't just upgrade. It had to be upgraded, it had to be tested against every COCOM, every configuration you could think of, push down prod, break some stuff, come back, be tested again, right? It was a very slow, meticulous process, was very infuriating, very frustrating. So I get that, right? But now my fear, again, looking at it from an old crusty veteran's perspective, like we're commissioning, tech bros and things of that nature to quickly fold them into the Department of Defense and move faster,
mhm.
which I just feel as though the pendulum has swung very far in the opposite direction because we were at needlessly, I can't speak, slow at one point. And now it seems as though it's like you said, we're moving at light speed.
Yeah, and it's
So
bizarre because it used to be where the government was lagging and industry was always, trying to push innovation. Now it's I'm like we're trying to keep up with the government because uh, they're changing playbooks so fast, and they're bringing things into IL6 for Ask Sage, so they have their own internal large language model. They've got Nipper GPT, and some of our other customers that we deal with at different agencies, they have their own large language models. I mean, I've seen them right from on the high side, and so it's not like industry is trying to force this onto to the government. It's like this convergence that's happening, right? They've got their
right,
stuff, we've got our stuff, and they say you can't use this model, you got to use this model, and and our enterprise is saying, well, we've got this model, I can't spend money to go do this, and so you have this dynamic going on here of these things that are colliding almost. And again, I go back to the analogy where security is stuck in the middle, like trying to arbitrate all of this stuff and making sure that things are safe and we're doing things as much as we that we're trying to do it in a secure way, but also not getting in the way. That's hard.
right. And that's such a hard balance because you want to find the right path to yes, right? Because
Mhm.
security, you're always the person where like, especially if you're in the role of an ISO or ISM, you're the person who says no. So I don't like talking to you because you're
Here
always
comes
saying no,
Allen
right?
again. Oh my God.
Right. Because you have rules, right? There's rules and it can't do certain things, but I will, based upon your needs and your requirements, I'll try to find an inroads to yes. So I came from the networking perspective, right? Like I was the person who was like, why does this GRE tunnel exist? why are these networks connected? Like, what is going on? So you're always going through and trying to standardize the boundaries, the Wild Wild West. You're trying to collapse all these devices and standardize configurations. It feels as though we're kind of in a very chaotic time where it happens where you have a bunch of competing technologies that go head to head, and HD DVD doesn't win, Blu-ray wins, right?
Mhm.
Or, we get away from the red box and now everything is streaming, right? You have 18 million apps, but yeah, that's a whole different argument. I digress on that one. But you always have these competing technologies that are all happening at one time. But I've never seen it in government the way it is. And again, I'm looking at it from the outside looking in. So I don't have those watchful airman eyes anymore where I'm like, what's going on in this environment, and what
Mhm.
have you. But it just seems to have flipped so quickly. And I feel as though, am I getting old, or are we just moving to singularity much faster than expected?
I just think we're moving faster than we expect. I don't think
Yeah,
anything about getting old. I just think, we're operating at a pace that is unprecedented. I don't ever remember anywhere in my career where we made these kind of pivots so fast because of a new technology.
right. I mean, it gives credibility to the technology itself, like, because I loved it for productivity's sake. However, the space race and the road to the atomic bomb, or the splitting of the atom, I should say, all happens because of geopolitical tensions. And it's always like, if you're not on top, right? It's the Ricky Bobby. If you're not first, you're last. So
Right,
it gives credibility to quantum computing. It gives credibility to AI, and the future of AGI, because if the government is so invested in trying to move so fast, it makes me believe that they know it's the future, right? As
right.
opposed to us, like, especially in my case, being a not evangelist, what's the word I'm looking for? A cheerleader, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
trying to champion the technology. Like, this is cool, but even I'm getting kind of like nervous. Like, hey, wait a minute,
Yeah, I try to temper I tend to be a futurist. Some people say, I'm too optimistic, but I try to temper it with some pragmatism here because, we still have to deal with our system that we have today, right? And so if you're always off way down the road seeing what's coming, what are you doing with stuff you got right now? Who's minding the store, to take a phrase from one of my colleagues, Alex Hilbert, in DCSA. He says, "Who's minding the store? You got to be minding the store right now." Also, and that's what your teams do. To being able to look down the road and see what's coming and try to prepare for it. We have this kind of dynamic now in our career field where we've got traditional IS people like ISMs, ISOs, and ISIs. They are they are hard fast on what RMF is, and if it doesn't fit in this box, throw it out the window. Zero trust,
right?
it's complicated or doesn't fit into this model. We are way past that type of mentality. If we're not thinking strategically about how we're managing these technologies, we're already left behind. It's something that I always say to my folks is, if you're not learning, you're stagnating. And if you think you know something today, you can guarantee that you're going to be wrong
Right.
tomorrow, almost with certainty.
No, that's definitely sage advice. So, like, because when I think about it, I'm like, man, if I were earlier in my career and put in this environment, I feel as though I would, in an environment where you're tip of the spear, right? Like, you've been given the tools to go forth and integrate new models and try new methods of aggregating data and things of that nature. Like, you're a JCSE, a JCU, a White House like, you're given a big budget and some freedoms, so to speak, as opposed to being more in garrison, right, where your hands are tied, where your traditional ISO or ism is like, no, what does the guide say?
Right?
No,
And the guy
right?
didn't exist, right?
I would think a younger me would be like, yes, this is awesome. But I think of me today, knowing not necessarily what the implications are, but just having, a more steeped in traditional RMF,
Mhm.
I would be panic mode.
Some
So
people
it's
are.
like,
Some people are.
cannot do that.
Some people don't work in the gray very well, right? Gray,
Right.
you can get it's either black or white. No, there's a lot of gray these days.
Yeah. So I mean, it's both exciting and very much, not troubling, but just it bring anxiety, right? It's like, man, I don't know if that's the right way to go. So it's a very interesting environment, and I'm thankful I'm not in it right now. Like maybe in the future I'll jump back in, but right now
Just
I'm under
imagine,
heavy
Ryan. I mean,
regulation.
you are living in a time right now that will never exist again, right? All this innovation is happening and you're right in the thick of it, right? When you get to be my age, you're going to look back and say, wow, wow. And I'm like, that's what keeps me inspired, right? Is because it's not change for change's sake. It's change in a transformative way. It's like when the internet came, right?
Yeah, I was
Everybody
gonna
was like,
say,
oh my
yeah,
God.
it's going from a DARPANET to, net zero to now worldwide, like uh, free like internet's everywhere. You can't live without it. So it's a utility basically. It's like having running water or electricity. To think that whatever AI will transform into will be the equivalent where you just can't live without it. It is, mind boggling. And I think it's cool. I feel inspired by it. But again, I'm steeped in a bunch of Terminator, and other
Well, we
East
get paid to be
mythology,
paranoid,
right?
right?
Whereas it's like, oh man, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this.
I mean, think about your kids or your grandkids, right? They're going to grow up in a generation where they're going to have AI companions. It won't even be a second thought, right? I look at my granddaughter, then when she's grown and her kids come along, I mean, like, this is where are we going to be then? Nobody's going to be having a conversation about anthropomorphism because we'll have robots that look like humans and they'll have artificial intelligence and they'll behave just like humans, like just going to accept it, right? So, that's the best case scenario that we live in harmony. So I try not to imagine the dystopian version of that.
Right. And yeah, it's definitely amazing time to be alive, man. Like I can't wait to see what the next decade or two looks like. As we continue to again, we're moving towards singularity, right? Like it'll be like it won't be a cure for cancer; it'll be your cure for cancer. If this is all said and done the way
Or
we
I'm just going
believe.
to take your conscience and put it into this bio-Borg body over here, right? And you just live on forever. I don't think my wife would like that so much. She's like, one time is enough. You get one pass.
Right, you get one one time. No, it's amazing. So before I let you go, I definitely have to ask the question. So two questions. One, I definitely want to talk about your upcoming initiatives. So three questions. I'm sorry, I'm being greedy. Question number one: what's keeping you up at night? Question number two: what are you unbelievably optimistic about? And then number three: what upcoming initiatives do you have going on?
So what keeps me up at night is the speed at which we're chasing this technology. From if I put my defense industrial security, my DIB hat on, I put my DIB hat on as a cybersecurity professional, I'm concerned about how fast we're moving towards this agentic future and what that means from a standpoint of interpretability for these models and understand what's happening with mind privacy and how we're protecting those boundaries. That keeps me up at night. And that's what I'm focusing on a lot of my writing now. And the second question, what was the second question?
What are you impossibly optimistic about? It's like, man, this is amazing.
I'm optimistic about the future and I'm optimistic about this technology. And I'm optimistic about our ability to be able to evolve and manage through this. I wrote in one of my content postings when artificial intelligence, if it ever becomes a threat, that our human ability to be able to extrapolate and to evolve and pivot is going to be the secret sauce that keeps us out of deep water with agentic systems, because that part of the human experience is not able to be replicated in AI. Our ability to be able to see beyond what's coming and to rally around each other, even if we have differences from cultural differences, when we experience an existential threat, we unify and unite around a solution. And I think that's going to be our protection. And the last question you had was, I can't remember what the last question
Your
was.
your upcoming initiatives. Like
Oh,
so
upcoming
where
initiative.
can we see Allen Westley in the next, quarter to the end of the year?
All right, so you can always catch me on LinkedIn. I post articles on Medium, and I have a couple events coming up. I have a presentation in for speaking at the DAF ITC 2025, and then I have a event coming up where I'm going to be at Cyber Bay in Tampa. That presentation was accepted, and I have a couple more that haven't been solidified yet through the end of the year that I'm working on. But when those come up, I'll be talking about these same topics. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you read my articles around mind privacy and cognitive security. That's a topic that's getting me pulled into a lot of these discussions because a lot of people are like, I didn't think about that. And so I just want to be able to build off of that and get awareness, build awareness around that.
No, that's awesome. And then, yeah, it's definitely piqued my interest. So I can't wait to see all of that upcoming material as well as, just share. So as things come up, please, like I'm always following your pages. So if something
Yeah, I
pops up, I
stalk
usually
you. I
reshare it.
stalk you all the time too.
Yeah. So, but if I miss something, please let me know. Like, hey, did you see this? And then I can reshare it or send it out in the newsletter. But no, thank you again for your time. Again, you've made it number 3. So now we gotta keep it going. Gotta get you on here a 4th time.
I wanted to get this plug in here before we left. Is thank you, number one, for including me in your book. I'm in chapter 9. If you're interested, go get your copy. It's right here. I don't know if it's
There it
backwards
is.
or forwards, but it's
It's forwards, yeah.
okay. It's the other side of the firewall. All right, so go get it, read it. There's a lot of personal stories in there. Some of the people in there I actually know, and there's Ryan stories in there as well. So thank you for including me in the book, and I wish you much success with your book. And that was just icing on the cake when you reached out. So thank you.
No, I greatly appreciate it. And I should be plugging it, and I always forget. But yes, please pick up the guide. Go to either theothersideofthefirewall.com, ramcyber.io, or pretty much anywhere books are sold, right? It's still going through the widget, so it's not everywhere like it should be, but it will be in the next couple weeks. Because I'm learning, right? Indie author, indie publisher. So I'm learning how to make these things go into the right channels. But Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, like all of the big names have the book. So
Give
please
us a master
pick it up.
class. You should do a master class on that process, because a lot of people, I'm interested. I'd like to know what kind of hoops of fire you had to jump through, if
Yeah,
there were
yeah,
any.
yes. I'm still jumping through some of them, but yeah, I've been documenting because I do want to put something together to talk about it, just to help people out, right? But
All right,
yeah,
great.
if I could turn it into a masterclass, so be it. But it's definitely a process. If you have I tell everybody, if you have a book, if you've been thinking about a book, write that book, and then you can, if you want to shop it around, you can. But if you want to just do it yourself, it's completely possible, and it's not that expensive to do so. So yeah, I'll put something together. Thank you for the inspiration. See, continue to inspire me. But yeah, check out the book. Hit up all the websites that go by our name, theothersideofthefirewall.com, ramcyber.io, or any combination thereof. Hit me up personally at RYRY Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me pretty much everywhere, but LinkedIn is where I'm most active. And where can we find you, Alan?
Find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Medium, YouTube, Blue Sky just recently, and on Flipboard. In case anyone know what Flipboard is, I curate about 18 magazines there that specialize in this niche market that I'm in, which talks about cybersecurity. So go check it out.
There it is. But yeah, thank you again for joining the podcast. And for everybody listening, please continue to listen as we go on this journey. I appreciate it. Stay safe, stay secure.
Thanks.